Sorry about that. Okay. So, three main types of estimates. Sorry, I took off style. So we have the dump, search and rescue, and the detailed takeoff. Okay. So all of these methods can be good in different situations. Okay. So one isn't always worse than the other. So dump would be when you just take the entire model tree in Navisworks and drag the whole thing down into takeoff and then export. Two-step, right? So everything is just drop, dump. And so really fast, right? And like, I just took off this entire building. And it can be good in some scenarios where you have no time and needs rough idea of what's obviously you're relying exclusively on how the architect knows. So if they named something wrong, so if they named a floor a wall, for instance, or something weird like that, you wouldn't know. Because all you have is an Excel report that says the name. So things could be all over the place, could be disorganized, could be hard to sift through the data, and things need to check. So in some scenarios that could be beneficial, but we try and avoid the dump. So sometimes where you would use it would be if you want to just do a quick scale takeoff, you could just drop on the ceiling 50 cubic foot, right? Times 190. I got a rough touch. Or if you just want to have how many total doors are there? Boom. 500, 36, whatever it is. So you can do the dump on a smaller scale in just one part of the building and dump it. Sometimes that can back it up. Okay? Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions? Search and rescue. That is kind of what we've been doing so far in class. Is you are concerned about a certain element of the building and you want to just take that off and you're searching through everywhere in that model to find just that element. So for our homeworks, we've been doing just concrete slabs or just concrete walls or CMU walls. And so you're kind of doing more of an in-depth search for just a few different item types. So obviously, because you're searching it and getting inside it, you're going to be getting a little more familiar with the model. You're going to find that's weird. They put the toilet partitions in the generic models, and that's where they hid it this time, or something like that. So that gives you an opportunity to kind of do a little QA/QC, right? So examples is like what we did for our homework, where you're just taking just the walls off, or you want to get a little more detailed in your steel, and so you're searching for just the columns, and then you're going to get all those in, and you're going to search for just the steel framing. A lot of times they put in concrete columns or framing inside that group header, and so if you just did the dump, you might include a bunch of concrete when you just thought you were getting steel. And so with the search and rescue, you're going to be searching a little more. Maybe you'll do some search sets for metal material, things like that. You're going to find everything with just those specific items. Also, if you're just looking for the oddball parts in a project, which we call them orphans at CW Driver at my work, we always want to try and find the orphans, which the orphans are things that are going to either get missed by different subcontractors when they're bidding, or there's something that is just a specialty item that it's one specific guy that can only bid it, and you didn't add him on your list because it's such a random thing. And so you want to pour through the plans and try and find those orphans in the beginning so you can get coverage on those. So you could maybe do a search for some of those things quicker than flipping through every single sheet of plan.
Did you go back and forth with your blueprints and the model when you're doing this thing, or you just
Definitely. No, definitely. I definitely go back and forth between the plans and the model. I've been doing a big takeoff currently right now where it's a new rec center for San Francisco State University. And we're crunched on time, and so I'm trying to pull as many takeoffs as I can from the model. But, like you said, you got to be referencing the plans because those are the contract documents. And so, and plans, or the model doesn't have details, right? So it doesn't have the waterproofing detail. Rarely does it ever model waterproofing at all. And so there's certain things that you just can't get from the model, and you get a much better understanding if you're also looking at the plans. Whoops. So the detail takeoff. So that is where you're going all out, okay? So you're no longer relying just on the architect's naming conventions or how they organize their takeoff. You're putting everything from the model into the way that you want it. So you can think of it as your estimate is like the shopping cart, and then your model is all the different pieces all jumbled together. And so when you're going to put your estimate together, you've got the blank shopping cart and you're pulling out pieces of it and putting them in the right place as you go. Instead of just pulling the whole model and dropping it in, it is what it is. So you're being a lot more organized. You're going to be doing the quality control because, like I said before, things are always in the right places. There's always items that either are pulling in incorrect quantity. So maybe cabinets in casework is a good example where they have L-shaped desks or countertops or shelving, and a lot of times the length and width won't be accurate. Somehow they just modeled it, say it was an L shape, and they just said it was a rectangle, and they just cut. So it doesn't give you the full linear feet of the L. There's lots of ways they could model it, it just won't be great. So you're going through and you're checking as you go, and looking and making sure that things are accurate, putting it in the right, organized place. So obviously, though, it does take longer to really do that. This project, it's about 102,000 square feet. It's a new rec center that I'm working on, and it probably took me almost 2 days, 2.5 days to really go through and take off every element of this project. Now, alternatively, that would probably take me a week and a half or 2 weeks of just going through the plans. So incredibly faster than the old school way, but still longer than just the dump or the search and rescue. I've been getting more. So this job is one that we've been helping with the design from the inception. So we've had models and iterations of models all the way through. But those are the times where we have more often we'll have a model is if we get awarded the project early, before the construction bid. So, but yeah, definitely I'd say I'm seeing more than when I first started, even just 3-4 years ago. So, Okay, any questions on the three main types?
That's okay.
Yeah.
Which software do you use?
To do my takeoff for the rec center?
Revit or Navisworks?
Navisworks.
Navisworks.
Yeah, so I use both, right? So I get a Revit model from the architect. They give me a Revit model. And so then I have to export it from Revit and then do my quantification in Navisworks. So you kind of need both.
Why don't you just do the takeoff in Revit?
Because in Revit, as maybe some of you guys have found, it's a lot harder to be organized and be customizable in Revit. So you can spit out schedules really good, but you have to do a schedule for each building component, right? So you do a wall schedule, a floor schedule, a furniture schedule, and then you export those all, and then you open those in Excel all independently. And so it's just not as clean of a process as having it all in Navisworks and being able to organize it as you go.
Is that also because once you want to take off something, you can't click it and to see which part it is in the schedule? Or which part is it in the blueprint? You know?
So I guess I don't. So say that again.
Because in Navisworks, if you click the
Mhm.
blueprint, you will see which part and what name everything. But in Revit, you can't see it.
Right. So there is a little bit of a workaround when you have your schedule open and your 3D view, and even a floor plan view for that matter. If you click on one thing, it should. Oh, I guess did we find that it didn't work, did it? Yeah. So it goes one way but not the other way. You're right. So that is another disadvantage. If you click on the item in the 3D view, it won't necessarily pull up in your
Revit.
right in Revit.
So more reality, like you feel in Navisworks, you feel the quantities, you
They're
know.
more user friendly and it's easier
Yeah,
to
more
navigate
friendly.
and to find things.
Definitely. And navigating the model is easier. Being able to do the walkthrough to look at things and sectioning is really easy. So a better overall user experience with Navis.
So it's
Definitely.
more popular now for estimating Navisworks.
Yes. And so 2015 or 2014 was the first time they really offered this quantification inside of Navisworks. Before, they had a product called QTO, Quantity Takeoff. And it was similar to the quantification aspect, but a lot clunkier and buggier. So,
I saw on the readings, they were talking about one of the software that is directly linked to Revit,
Innovaya.
that one.
Yeah.
So is that better or is just something new?
So we have looked into Innovaya as a company because we are still relatively new at the whole, and everyone really, at the estimating in BIM. And so there's a few different options out there. Vico was one. I don't know if that was in any of your readings, but Vico is a software by Trimble that is out there that is an estimating software. And Innovaya, another one. So the reason why we strayed away from Innovaya is it is pretty slick. It's integrated with Revit really well and parallels, but the company, one of our VPs knows the owner very well, and it's a smaller company with kind of just one guy as he is the company. And so that makes us a little weary of, if that guy got hit by a bus and, heaven forbid, we're kind of like, oh. So I don't know. That's at least what I've heard from my VP as they looked into Innovaya. But probably it's a great program, I think, and I haven't used it as much. But yeah, Mark.
And Navisworks and Revit are both made by Autodesk.
Correct.
Why don't they just put them in one program?
If people buy it, spend more money.
Maybe
That's
you're
part
right.
of it.
Yeah, you might be right.
That's definitely a big part of it. Yeah, why don't they just incorporate quantification in Revit? Yeah, maybe they're going that way, but they're just, I think a big part of it is it's been developing in different ways, and so they kind of grow, and maybe someday they can merge together. have a, what is the word I'm looking for? They just did a beta test, and we didn't get to be a part of it for some other issues, but for integrating Navisworks and Timberline. So Timberline is the database estimating software, and the idea is that you do your takeoffs and somehow it's linked to your database, and you can just take off to items, and then
Right.
it's in your database now, and you just adjust your pricing and you're good. So I think it's going that way, but again, it's just a little timeout. So Vico is one that's kind of all in-house. It's meant to be a one-stop shop. Vico is, you import in your model from Revit, and then you're quantifying in there. You can do some change analysis, and it also has an estimating module where your estimate lives in Vico too. We looked into that also. It looks pretty sleek and sexy, but once we dug into it a little more with some more complicated models and real-life models, it was a little more cumbersome, and there's some other issues that made us not want to go in that direction, but could be very viable for many people. So there are other softwares out there. By far, I think Navisworks and Autodesk in general has the lion's share of the market. So, yeah, good questions. Any other questions?
What did you say about the waterproofing on the wall?
Mm-hmm.
When somebody design in Revit, they can design wall as well. You know, designing wall, you can go inside and you can show layers of your wall.
Correct.
You know, the
Correct.
are you checking that? Like, you checking how it's designed?
So,
Or it's just missing. They don't care. They just put the wall, standard wall, and they just look how it looks like. It's not.
so I don't believe when you export into Navisworks that you have, it can only read so many properties, and I don't think that's one of them that comes through, is the different layers of that wall. It just relies on the naming convention.
My question is that when you design on Revit, you can go inside of the wall and you can make your design.
Correct.
Is that gonna be taking but navis and put in the quantity? How that's gonna work? If you're gonna open the wall in Revit, you can add extra layer of something.
Right.
And how the navi is gonna read that?
So I think a lot of times it doesn't read that.
That's the
Yeah. So it'll read materials, it'll read types and things like that, but as far as what the different layers are, I don't think that it reads that.
because you can go inside and you can extend your wall, or you can do whatever you want
Yep.
to do.
Yeah, definitely. In Revit, you can make a custom family that has, it'll show you the section of its metal stud, drywall, brick,
Yeah, yeah. You can
or
go
something like that.
inside.
Hmm.
Well, you will need to create a family just for the waterproofing, like a wall instead of a layer, I guess, and then we'll read it like a family when you are.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You probably, if you were going to get that level, you could either just take it off twice, and so just take off the entire wall for the metal stud or concrete, and then take it off again, only the parts that have waterproofing. Or you can use resources, which we haven't gotten into as much, but a resource basically, you have the geometry you took off. So say you took, and you're used to seeing that in your item catalog. You take off a wall, it has square footage, yada, yada, yada. You can add a resource, which basically is like an add-on. So you can say a resource of metal studs, you add it to that wall so it takes that same area and you have that many square foot of studs. You could also add a resource of gypboard. So you could say area times 2 for the gypboard because it's a 2-sided wall. You could also add waterproofing area up to 4 feet. You can do custom formulas like that. So if you wanted to, that's ways, and we're going to get into that, but that's ways that you can pull from that data that maybe doesn't show. sorry, when I say your estimate, in Navisworks and get it all organized perfectly and then export it and then you're done. Or you do it more rough in Navisworks, export it out and then do your tweaking stuff. So there's kind of different people like different ways. My old professor, he liked to have everything super detailed, all in Navisworks. And whereas me, I'd rather just get it roughly there, spit it out, and then tweak it how I want. So, yeah, in the model, you mean? Or just in the estimate? So if I figured I had a pool that, say, it was like a big pit, or hopefully if I had drawings, they'd be able to show some details as to what waterproofing is needed and what conditions, and then you just have to. Okay.
You have the shoring,
Right.
and depending on the soils, you may have methane, you may have a high water table, you may have a low
Sure.
water table, you may have soil that's going to fall apart, or clay that expansive or whatever.
Sure, you may have granite and those are kind of the intangible things. Is what I think what you're getting at is there's some site conditions that play into directly correlate to costs that you can't just quantify through a model or plans. Does that kind of make sense?
At what point would you get that, or would that, you wouldn't get that in the.
Right. The geotech report would usually come in like the design development. So conceptual, schematic, design, and construction. Right? So those are the 4 steps. So in like the 3rd step, maybe in construction documents, you look at geotech and structurals, you should have as early as schematic, building late release. So yeah, so you're right. A lot of those things, and that's getting into kind of conceptual estimate, assumptions, and right.
I mean, that's the thing is that I think is everybody's questioning is that you can go detail with your estimating as a general contractor, but you doing the job for the subcontractor is doing that by that way, or you just saying. As a general contractor, or you gonna count on the subcontractor?
So you're going to start, if you're early on in conceptual, you're going to be doing most of your own takeoffs and throwing some rough budgets at square foot costs and things like that. So that's then as you get closer up to construction documents, you're exactly right. If you spend a ton of time and have really detailed takeoffs, and then you come in and it's like, awesome, great, I did all these takeoffs, it's going to be a great estimate, but it's no good because the subbids are what you're going to be putting into your number. So, well, I had 100 square feet, but these three, or say, I had 100,000 square feet of flooring, but these three other contractors had 105,000. Well, that's great. I knew I was close. I got a good couple of them. Okay, how about if I had 100,000 square feet and these guys all, there were 6 of them, they all had 300,000 square feet. I'm probably the wrong one. So even there, it didn't even help me that much. So I'm still going to use their number. So I think there's a balance of being able to know what to, what level all take off, and then you utilize that. It becomes a conversation point. Because you're right, it's performed. It's hook for takeoff. Yeah. And I think part of the beauty and what we're pushing for in this class is being able to do takeoffs in such a shorter amount of time that allows you to spend it on other higher level techniques. And so now, where to do the bare minimum takeoffs it would have taken at least a week, to get through and really just to have some decent stuff to look at. Now you can do that in a few days and have 3 more days to work on getting coverage or something like that. So when I do takeoffs, that's how I get to know the job too. So it's twofold. You're getting check numbers, but you're also learning the job, learning what's needed of you. Okay.
It's gonna cost that much, and that's
Uh-huh.
what you're gonna lose. So what he did, he bought has all of them, put all there.
Wow. He's able to save money on it.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only way. The subcontractor was very clever,
Yeah.
very smart.
Yeah. Same thing with demolition. These guys, they get most of their money from salvage, from selling the precious metals from wires or things that they get, and so they can get some real good margins. What if that didn't work? Yeah.
Yeah. They weren't lucky.
Yeah. Means and methods. So, well, that's good. That's some good discussion there. I'm gonna now jump into Navisworks, and I'm going to show you a few things. We're kind of taking another step a little bit deeper now into Navis, and going to be going into a little more detail. So I'm going to go over these main things, and then I'm going to let you guys work through basically a worksheet. It's like an assignment, but it walks you through step by step of basically a more detailed version of what I'm going to do right now. And you're going to start it here in class, and then you'll finish it as your homework. Okay? So I just wanted to demo some of these items. So we'll start here, and I have an architectural and a steel model. And I want you guys to show you how to append each model into the same. So your architectural and structural are both in the same airspace, right? now with the quantification, so far we've been kind of relying on archetypes naming convention, rather than, it already says city wall, so it's going to use what it says. But you can customize your whole catalog exactly what you want. I'm going to set up a new project. I can make, again, remember the shopping cart? Detail takeoff. We're focusing on detail takeoff. So I know how my estimate is going to be set up. So I'm going to set up my catalog exactly the way that I'm going to use my quantity estimate. So we're going to go into division 5, let's go into division 3 concrete. Make a new group and call this slab. Notice it gave the WS value of 3.1. Just do that automatically. I can change that to be 30.10. So I can change the way that the WS value goes, right? So when you export your report, these all come through and sort. I want to control WS value. Now within slab on grade group, I'm going to make items. We haven't really made items yet. We've just let Navisource do that for us. But what you can do here is create a preset item. Call this 4-inch slab on grade. And I'm going to have my WS value as 100. I'm going to add a description. If I wanted my area to equal something specific, I want it to equal times the height, or the width. I can make it calculate that. So this would only work if it's a square slab, right? So I'm just trying to illustrate a point that you can override how this calculates. Sure, because sometimes you're going to have, it's not going to be what you want. So, for instance, a slab could have a bunch of cutouts in it, possibly. A better example is the wall. So the wall is going to have your net area is what the model is going to be. That means it's not going to include places where there's a doorway. It's not going to include places where there's a window. control. As an estimator, I don't ever estimate with net area. I always take off my gross area of walls. Yeah. Yeah. And so if I was a drywall subcontractor and I want to know exactly how many square foot of board I got, maybe I would want the net, and that would be okay. That depends sometimes. Mhm. Right. So maybe net you would add 5%, or gross you would just assume your factors are. Yeah. So the point is, if it's you can customize this, right? And so you may not always want to. Maybe you want to use always the net area and you're good with that. But there are times when, say, the width is not the correct width. Or maybe you know that it's always going to be 3 feet or something like that, even though it doesn't say what the width is in the model. So you can override anything you want within that. Yes. So for instance, a better example. Back to how it was. So say the thickness. Say this slab on grade was 4 inches. Say maybe they misnamed the condition, and so it shows as a 6-inch. They use a 6-inch model piece, but it's actually for the drawings a 4-inch slab. So in this case, if I just put in 4 here, so now my volume is going to be correct. So whereas the model was, it's going to say 6 inches and multiply out my volume as if it's 6 inches, I know the model's not right and it's a 4-inch slab, so I'm going to make sure it's not good. But it's not going to change the geometry. I think that's your question. It's not going to change anything inside the model. It's just changing the number that spits out. Yeah, good question. Yeah, so this isn't changing the actual geometry. So the volume, for instance, I could say, if I knew that this was the incorrect thickness, I could say equals area times 4. Or I guess it would be so it would have to be area times, I could say thickness since I fixed it, and divided by 27, right? And that would be my cubic yards. And I made this, and actually, yeah. So this would be 4 divided by 12, but you get the point. So you can custom put in formulas when it's not spitting out automatically how you want it, which happens all the time. Just so you will use this. Say that again, but what can be in that script? Sure. So you can do that as well. So say you wanted to add a factor, you would have to put it in here in the formula. So model width times 1.01. So yeah, I would probably just, the way I would do it is have spit it out how it is true life and then give them factors and stuff. But some people would want to put the factors. There's also a primary quantity. This basically just lets you say this column is always the primary quantity, which you can choose what the heck you want it to say. So if I know for a slab on grade, instead of having to look for the right column for different conditions, I can always just go to my primary quantity. This equals volume in cubic yards. makes sense. So you can totally customize, and you'll be doing this as part of your homework and the exercise. You can customize your catalog, and then now look how teeny my window has gotten. So now if I'm coming through here, I can take off, remember page up and page down. That's how you can zoom out. Page up is to show the entire model. If you click on one thing, page down zooms just to that item. So it's really handy. But you were going to say something, Hubert? Sure. And you can just drag the wall in to both of them. Drag it into your regular wall and then drag one into drywall. Yeah, you can do it however the heck you want. And so if I come in here to floors, so I've got my concrete 5-inch. So say I knew that this was actually a 4-inch, remember? So you can either, again, I'm going to change my selection. Yeah, so I just changed, I clicked on an item, right-clicked, and then said select resolution to first object. Remember, that's important. And so now if I were to, sorry, what did you want again? Okay. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, this is your. So basically, this from here down, it's all the same. Good question. So basically, it's the lowest one that has the 5 dots. That's the one you usually want to pick if you're going to be taking off something. So that's like an, I think they call it an object. Correct. So all of these, if you think of it as in a folder. So this and this are all in the concrete 5-inch category. So they're all the same. 2.5-inch is a whole separate category, right? And it's going to have its own subparts. So this is the group, and then once you get into the cube, that's like the actual object for each one. And then these are like the elements of it. I don't know the correct terminology, but basically you can't take this off, but you can take this off. And you can't, yeah. And so let's take off the 5-inch, and so I'm going to do it a few ways. So you can either do it from the selection tree, do it from the model, or do it from the workbook. 3 different ways to be able to do your takeoff. So you can right-click, and then quantification, and it says take off to, and it's the last thing that's selected in your workbook. So if you select this first, then right-click on here, quantification, take off to 4-inch. So I took it off straight to the item. So it's going to pick up all of that and put it into my item. Okay? Now if I wanted to try and take off all the floors at this level to the 4-inch, it's not going to let me because I took too high of a level. And if I try and take this off, it's not going to let me because it's too deep of a level. So basically these two you can take off. And so I can also come in here and say I want to hide unselected. Here's my slab. And I could also drag this into my item, or I could even drag it into a different, just a group, and you'll see that it drags it in and renames it for me. So it made its own new item. So that's the way we've been doing it previously. But you can make your own item and customize it. So two ways. Again, it's how much detail you want to have and have control over. And then, it should have given me the net area. And then the other way you can take off is by selecting something in the model and then right-clicking on the item you want it to take off, and you say take off selected model items. And it takes it off to that item. Says it's already been taken off. Are you sure? No, I actually don't. I don't want to double it up. Yep. Sure. Correct. So now, so now you can see through the walls, but if you wanted to go in here, you could see also that got taken off. Because in my item catalog, 5 inch is green, 4 inch is red. So really, it's the same item that got taken off twice, so it's interesting. So yeah, so you could have a color code say all my concrete is going to be some hue of red. All my steel is going to be some hue of blue. All my wall, so you could get down to that level of detail. And then export your catalog, bring that in every new job, and it's exactly the way you want it. You don't have to start over from scratch. And so I could come in here and then say, okay, I want to take off now these next floors, and I could make a new catalog item, etc. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. You're going to get into that. So basically the point is you can customize your items within your catalog to however you want. So there's a lot of power in that. Okay? Let's see. So we went over custom WS values, creating your own items and then taking off to them, and then making formulas. And now let's look at property mapping. So this, we're going to use the structural model to illustrate this. So I'm going to hide my architectural. And so, in this item, let's see. I want it to be big there. There we go. So I want to have that big. And so if you click on any item, you can see in here that you got Revit type is a good one that has a lot of good information. And you notice it has the W. Okay? So let's click another item. So if you look here in the Revit type, it doesn't have a W, but it does have a WT. So for whatever reason, this item has a different pound per foot variable. So I want to be able to tell Navisworks that don't look for W, look for WT for this item. Okay? So if I go to my quantification workbook, which is hiding somewhere, why do you say that? So you have to, it depends on which item you're clicking. So if you have select last object, it's going to be doing that little detail part, and it's not going to have the right information. Yeah, that's a good point. So, for instance, he was saying, if I click here on my joist, it's frustrating not to have a bigger screen. So if I look on this joist, all I have is item and timeliner, no Revit type. And if I try and click in all the way down to this level of this one joist, all I have is item and timeliner. But when I click on these, so it looks like I still don't have it all. But on this item is where I have all my different tabs. Good question. So let's add to my quantification under metal. So I need to do it in my item catalog, right? So I'm going to add a group called structural framing. And I'm going to make it 0510.00. And then I'm going to make a new item called joist. And in that item, you can come up here to property mapping. So this is global mapping rules. So if you have everything in this model, you know you want to change a specific property, you can do that. So if I want to add, so I want the model weight to be the same as the Revit type WT. So that would change it for the entire model. Now remember, W was there on some of them, wasn't it? So I don't want to necessarily do that because then the other half aren't going to show up. So I'm going to cancel that. I don't want to do a global change. What I want to do is go back to my item catalog, and I can map a specific item. So this is my item map. So I'm under my joist that I just made, and I'm going to map this item. And I'm going to say, I want the model weight to be, and I'm going to go through that same thing. Found it on Revit type. Had to do a little research to find that, right? Sometimes it's called different things. I'm changing my Revit type. I want the property for my model weight to be WT. So now, when I take this item off to the joist, and I can either just right click quantification, take off the joist. Now it has my model weight. That's pinned down. Whereas, let's just take it off now to somewhere else. I'm going to take it off again just to structural framing so it makes its own. So it just made its own thing right there. And I'm going to take it off and look. And the weight is 0. The model weight didn't come through. That's because we didn't do the custom mapping on it, okay? So this is going to happen all the time as well. In a different model, You'll pull something through, half of it will be there, half of it won't. Like on the steel for the midterm. A lot of it wasn't there. It didn't have a W. And so maybe that other variable, there was another variable that had that weight value in it. And so that's something to look into. Okay? So I showed you all that. That's the showing, and now you guys are going to jump into this assignment. And I dropped this on the drive, and we're going to open up this quantification 2015 version 3. And your homework basically and the rest of class is going to be going through this all the way down to page 13. Up into the 2D takeoff. We're not going to do the 2D takeoff. You're going to stop there. Okay? And so we're going to have you guys can take a break right now. I know I just kind of rolled right through our break. And then we'll just start working through it. So I'm here as a resource to help you through it, and then you'll finish it as your homework.